welcome to today's video. Today's video is about how to squat, specifically around the barbell squat, and maybe I'll show you different variations of squatting. If you are new to my page, welcome to my page. Thank you for joining me today. And if you would like to share what brought you to my page, feel free to let me know in the comment section below so that I can really know where my traffic is coming from. Before I dive in a little bit more into the video, this is what I personally teach my clients and what I have other people do as well, and it seems to work just fine. There are a lot of different videos you can find on how to squat properly from different people, and some are qualified, some are not so qualified. Now, before I jump into the video though, why should you listen to me? Well, I consider maybe I know what I'm talking about, maybe I don't. Maybe that's for you to decide, but feel free to look up what I do as far as the world of powerlifting, those sort of things. This isn't really focused on that niche, although I will give some tips on that niche, but it's just a simple how to squat with a barbell that you can do at your gym. And I think some tips that I have. I purposely am wearing this shirt because we need to call out the people that are jealous and that have nothing else better to do than to say something bad about whomever they're watching because they don't have life. So I figured I need to pull out the tank top, although I don't really like to. Sometimes I kind of prefer to keep the t-shirt. I like to teach people how to squat with no shoes. So right now I have Metcons. I like these Nike Metcons because they are Nike Metcons because they are flat, they are really supportive, and they really help me stay stable, whatever, what have you. But I also like training barefoot and flat, with no shoes. Now, there's different types of shoes. You can do wrestling shoe, Asics wrestling shoe for deadlifts, which I do. You can do flat-footed, and the same applies to squats. You can use wrestling shoes for squats. You can do barefoot, you can do Olympic shoes, you can do Converse, you can do Metcons. There's really no right way. It depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to be a CrossFit person, although in my opinion, not everyone should be doing CrossFit, then obviously doing a Metcon like what I just showed you, what I'm wearing, is a good cross trainer tool that you can use. Another option is if you're trying to get into powerlifting or any sort of weightlifting, if you are into powerlifting, you're a smaller in stance or smaller in stature, you may want to look into Olympic weightlifting shoes because it has a little bit more of an advantage for the smaller people. But there are a lot of taller people that use platform wedge type of Olympic shoes for powerlifting, for heavy squat. Training a client, they just say, I just want to learn how to squat, and I really don't know what that means because there's just so many avenues that I can go down. So I typically have them start squatting flat-footed, okay, because that's just the easiest way, and that's probably the way I'm going to suggest you to try to do. Also, being flat-footed and without shoes when you're squatting, it shows you what's going on in the feet. If you are having some sort of pronation or supination happening, most likely it's usually pronation. Pronation is where the ankle, the soles kind of collapse. In other words, it pronates. Supination is where the feet, they open. So a lot of people, their feet collapse, or their soles, I guess, collapse. It's pretty common. A lot of people have it. I don't really see a problem. As long as your calves, your hamstrings, your quads, your glutes are working properly to keep you stable and safe, that's the most important thing, in my opinion. And also training your feet, that's important because feet are the foundation of the body. So what I typically have people do is, if I'm training a client or if I'm training somebody, I try to have them just sit in a chair and stand back up. If you can do this effortlessly, then it's pretty okay for me to move on to having you to possibly load you. So it's pretty simple. You start from your standing position and you stand up. What a lot of people tend to do is when I ask them to stand up, is they do this. Okay, I don't want you to do that. This kind of defeats the purpose of what I'm trying to have you do. So I want you to start in a seated position. You start in a seated position and you stand up. Sit, stand. Also notice I'm not rocking back as I stand. I'm simply tapping, tapping, okay? So once you can master that and you're okay doing that, then you can move into regular body weight squats. A couple things that I see people do, what's pretty common, is when they squat, their knees, they might collapse in as they come back up, or they might go in as they go down. That's usually a lack of strength in the inner thigh and the outer thigh. The outer thigh is responsible for really pulling those knees out as you're squatting, as well as your glutes. So you want to start strengthening your glutes. If you go to a gym, you can do the glute thrust machine. So I would start using those because that will help your squat a lot. The stronger the glutes, the safer your squat tends to usually be. I see that's pretty common that I see people do is their ankle, their heels. They squat and their heels come up. Okay, so this is just a lack of awareness of how to actually, if somebody's raising their heels, then I put something to elevate their heels and it works just fine. I typically like to teach with the toes slightly pointed out, not too forward, slightly pointed out. When you squat down, it's much easier now to squat up and down, okay? So if you have that problem where your heels are coming up when you're squatting, then try putting something underneath your heels, and that should fix the problem. But you want to also address the issue that's going on. Usually if the heels are coming up, it's your gastrocnemius and your soleus, which is this muscle right here, your calf. You want to start kind of stretching and try to work on that muscle tissue. It's probably really tight and just not pliable, if that's the right word. It's not moving. It's not really operating at its best. So you want to start doing some calf stretches, maybe some ankle ABCs and kind of circular motions. Basically just start training your calves. Usually if you fix the calf issue, the elevated heel issue subsides. So once you master the regular squat with elevated heels, or if you're sitting in a chair, you're standing up, you're doing box squats, then you can maybe look into doing a barbell squat. Barbell squat is a very technical movement. There's just a lot of variables that go into it. So I'm very cautious to teach people this because typically their goal is not to squat 300 pounds or what have you, unless you're trying to specifically train for a sport. Depending on the gym that you go to, the barbell is going to be different. There's stiff bars, there's power bars, and there's deadlift bars. This is a stiff bar. You can use a power bar if you're at a specific niche focused gym. But in my opinion, if you're new to everything, you shouldn't be using any special equipment because you should be learning the technique first and actually gain some work ethic. Now, the barbell, you can see it has the knurling. So the knurling is you can hear the grippy part. So the grippy part is where your neck goes, and then you have more knurling, and then that's basically it. Okay, so if you do a front squat, you can hold in different ways. A lot of people, I know that they call it the zombie squat. It's where you squat with no hands. You can also hold the bar like this, which is if I were to teach it, that's how I would have someone, because usually their wrist mobility is not up to par. Or you can hold it underneath like this. So what I just did was I take two fingers, put it on the bar, roll my wrists. You can also hold it with all fingers, but roll my wrists, and I squat. Okay, I just do a regular squat. Okay, so that's the front squat. I'm not going to demonstrate the squat because mostly you're not going to do this now. Now, if I rest my head, I'm going to rest my head like so. And what I do is I tend to teach people a 3-second breath. So big breath in, stand, and I take a 3-step walk out. 1, 2, 3, and I'm ready to squat. I'm going to show you the feet angle here in a second. This is high bar right now. As you can tell, the bar is positioned in the high bar. Low bar is right below the trap. Okay, low bar is right here, and low bar is more hip dominant. High bar is more knee dominant, more quad dominant. So So depending on what you're naturally good at and what you personally prefer, it comes down again to what I mentioned in my deadlift video, what you're naturally, what you're good at. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you a regular squat. It's pretty simple. You put the barbell on your back. What a lot of people tend to do is they do this and they hold the barbell. You don't want to hold the barbell. You want to rest it on your traps. Okay, so just relax, rest it on your traps as though you're picking somebody up, like a friend who needs help. You're holding them on your back. It's the same exact motion. So every time before you lift the weight, you're going to take a big breath in, stand up, take 3 steps forward or back depending on where you are. And this is my starting position. You're going to take a big breath in, squat down to about 90 degrees, and come back up. I'll show you this angle, and you're going to specifically look at my knees and look at my feet as they do this. So you don't want to do that. You want to push your knees out. You want to try to go to 45 or to 90 degrees. If you stop right here, I guess that's fine too. Some people go really low. That works for them. I usually just have my clients go stop at 90 degrees and come back up. Okay. You'll notice this is high bar right now. This is low bar. Okay. You'll notice that also my hands moved out of position, so I'm a lot more wider because this is a more of a kind of a more wider stance per se. And it's the exact same motion. I'm low bar. This is low bar. This is high bar. Okay, high bar I tend to go a little bit more narrow on my hands. Low bar I tend to go wider. So some people don't really like to barbell squat, in which case if that's your scenario, you really don't need to barbell squat unless you're trying to train for something specific and you're into sports. You can do a kettlebell squat. So this is 25 pounds and you can just squat normally how you would with the barbell instead of having it on your back. Now you're just holding it in front of you, also called the goblet squat. It's pretty common. You'll see a lot of trainers training their older clientele with the goblet squat because it's simple, it's effective, and it gets the job done. It trains their legs, it trains their glutes. It's really a really good exercise. You really don't need the barbell. The barbell is more so if you're trying to be, some sort of fancy schmancy person and you want to look cool, but you really don't need to do the barbell squat. Barbell squat, in my opinion, not everyone should be doing it because it requires a lot of self-awareness, a lot of technique, a lot of breathing properly, a lot of breathing mechanics. I would rather teach someone how to deadlift than teach them how to squat, because deadlift is something that you inherently do every day. A squat, a heavy squat, is not something that you do every day, unless you're trying to save somebody's life. So, but those are my tips, how to squat. It comes down, same thing to the deadlift. Feet placement, breathing mechanics. You always exhale on the hard part of the movement. So when you're squatting, the hard part of the movement is when you come up. The easy part is when you go down. So you big breath in, you squat, and then you exhale. You always exhale when you come up for the squat and for the bench and for the deadlift. When you bench, I'll make a separate video how to bench. You start here, you come down, and you push and exhale. Same thing with the squat. Inhale, push and exhale. Deadlift, same thing. Big breath in, inhale, stand up, exhale. Okay, so always the hardest part of the exercise, you always exhale. You always exert force. It's always on the exerting force where you exhale. So feet placement, hands placement on the barbell. I would suggest if you want to do a barbell, you can start with high bar first. If you have very strong hips, then maybe doing a low bar is a better option. There's other things called using a safety bar squat, which I probably will make a separate video about. Safety bar squat is where you hold the bar in front of you, and it has a lot of benefits. It helps to teach you how to stay upright in the squat if you have a tendency to lean forward when you squat. It also just overall strengthens your core stability, and overall, I personally believe to better carry over to the barbell squat that I just showed you. If you go to fancy schmancy gyms, I see too many people try to use elite equipment when they are not efficient. They do not have good form, in my opinion, are not qualified to be using the equipment. But but they somehow feel the need that they're somehow special and feel the need to use this equipment because it somehow magically makes them feel special and professional when they're not. So don't be one of those people. Have some humility and just try do the basic things well. If you're able to do the basic things well, then you can get the fancy equipment. When I first got started, I had no fancy equipment. In fact, I had a stiff bar for everything, and that's how I like it. I like simplicity because simplicity works. It teaches you dedication, hard work, gratefulness, work ethic, and dedication. That's what the bones teach you, and the foundations, because if you do not have that foundations, no matter what fancy equipment that you have, it does not work unless you work. So if you don't have good form and you have too big of an ego to accept the fact that you're not ready for that fancy equipment or to advance yourself into more weight, then you should not even be considering getting into that next level. Okay, so that was the video on how to squat. I hope that that did help you. If you felt that this helped you, feel free to like the video and share it with all your amazing friends. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and have a great day. Remember to be positive, smile, floss your teeth, and brush your hair.